My name is Rachel Dawson. That morning, while she was still lying in a hospital bed recovering from emergency surgery, Rachel received a notification from the family group chat. The first message came from Olivia. Finally, the day has arrived. The bank has repossessed Rachel's ranch. This Friday, I'll be attending the auction. If everything goes well, that land will belong to our family. Less than a minute later, her father replied, I'll transfer the money today. Then came a message from her mother. It's about time that place was put to proper use. Rachel stared at her phone screen for a long time, not because she was angry, but because she felt something familiar returning. The feeling of being seen as the failure. For the past 7 years, her family had talked about Rachel's life as if it were a cautionary tale. They believed she had made a mistake. They believed the large ranch outside Bozeman was a financial burden. They believed her environmental consulting work was nothing more than an expensive hobby. And they believed that one day she would come back asking the family for help. But the truth was completely different. Rachel was not bankrupt. She was not struggling. For years, she had quietly built a water resource consulting company serving agricultural communities across the western United States. Her contracts stretched across multiple states. Her annual income far exceeded anything her family could have imagined. The ranch they called a financial black hole was actually the headquarters of her entire operation. From the office overlooking those vast fields, Rachel had signed contracts worth millions of dollars. But she never told her family. Because every time she shared a success, she received the exact same response: silence. 3 years earlier, Rachel had received a state environmental award. Her mother simply said, "That's nice," then immediately changed the subject to Olivia's new car. 2 years earlier, Rachel's research paper had been published in a prestigious professional journal. Her father asked, "Does it make any money?" When Rachel explained that it was nonprofit research, he simply nodded and moved on to another topic. Meanwhile, every time Olivia achieved something, the entire family celebrated as if it were a holiday. Once, Olivia received a promotion at her real estate company. Their parents hosted a dinner. The cousins sent gifts. Everyone raised a glass in celebration. That same week, Rachel had signed the biggest consulting contract of her career. Not a single person asked a follow-up question. At first, Rachel was deeply hurt. Then she started keeping records. On her computer was a file called The Missing Applause. Every time her family dismissed one of her accomplishments, Rachel wrote it down, not for revenge, only to remind herself that it had really happened. She wasn't imagining it. She wasn't being overly sensitive. It was all real. The list grew longer and longer. Forgotten birthdays, phone calls that were never returned, successes dismissed as luck. Small setbacks turned into proof that she wasn't good enough. Rachel used to believe that if she worked a little harder, her family would change. If she became a little more successful, they would finally recognize her. If she stayed patient a little longer, they would become proud of her. But the years passed. Nothing changed. Because the problem had never been her achievements. The problem was the story they wanted to believe. In that story, Olivia was the successful one. Rachel was the one who always needed saving. And any truth that challenged that story was simply ignored. Her phone vibrated again. Olivia had sent another message. "I just spoke with a few investors. If the auction goes through, the ranch's value could rise very quickly. We're lucky our family acted in time," one cousin replied. "Rachel must be desperate right now." Another added, "At least Olivia is saving the family's assets." Rachel laughed. It was the coldest laugh she had given in years. Because there was one thing nobody in that group chat knew. The ranch had never been repossessed by any bank. The final loan had been paid off long ago. There was no auction. There was no foreclosure. And most interesting of all, Rachel had just received an email from the law office managing her grandfather's estate. An email containing information that even Olivia had never heard about, information that could completely change the value of the property. Rachel locked her phone screen. Outside the hospital window, the sun was slowly sinking behind the distant mountains. In the family group chat, everyone continued celebrating. They believed that in just a few days, Rachel would lose everything. None of them knew that the real storm had not even begun. Friday morning arrived faster than Rachel expected. As the sun rose over the fields of western Montana, dozens of new messages had already appeared on her phone. The family group chat was buzzing as if everyone were preparing for a major holiday. Olivia posted a photo taken outside the county administration building. Along with it came a simple caption: "The big day is finally here." Congratulations immediately poured in. Her mother wrote that everything was finally falling into place. Her father said this was the best investment opportunity the family had ever seen. One cousin even joked that they should host a barbecue as soon as the paperwork was completed. Rachel read every message. No one mentioned her. No one asked where she was. No one questioned why the owner of the ranch was completely absent from the conversation. It was as if Rachel didn't exist, as if the land had never belonged to her. About an hour later, while Rachel was sitting in her office at the ranch, her phone suddenly rang. An unknown number. She answered. A deep, professional voice greeted her. "Hello, Miss Rachel Dawson. My name is Nathan Brooks from Mountain Crest Bank." Rachel frowned slightly. "The bank?" The man continued. "I apologize for the unexpected call, but we're dealing with a rather unusual situation involving one of your properties." Rachel immediately sat up straight. Nathan explained that earlier that morning, a woman named Olivia Dawson had appeared at the county administration office. She had brought foreclosure documents, she had brought auction authorization paperwork, and she had brought a very large deposit. Her intention was to purchase Rachel's ranch. A brief silence followed. Then Rachel asked, "Which ranch?" The man read the exact address. It was hers. Nathan took a slow breath. "The problem is that our records show this property has never been placed in foreclosure. The loan was paid off quite some time ago." Rachel looked out the window. The fields stretched endlessly beneath the morning sunlight. Everything appeared peaceful, but inside her, something shifted. At last, the truth was beginning to reveal itself. "I have never authorized anyone to sell that property," Rachel said, "and I have never received any foreclosure or auction notices." Nathan responded almost immediately. "That's exactly what we suspected. Because every document, Miss Olivia submitted, shows signs of irregularities. Less than 30 minutes later, a team of bank attorneys began reviewing the entire file. What they discovered made the situation far more serious. The foreclosure notice was fake. The auction authorization was fake. Some of the paperwork even contained outdated company logos that had not been used in years. Every document had been digitally altered. Rachel sat quietly. She no longer felt shocked. Instead, she felt something much colder. Olivia had not misunderstood anything. Olivia had planned this, and she had planned it carefully. While the review was underway, a county administrative employee also noticed several inconsistencies. The documents Olivia submitted did not match the state database. The employee immediately reported the issue to a supervisor. The auction process was suspended at once. All transactions were frozen. Olivia's deposit could not be released. Early that afternoon, Nathan called Rachel again. This time, his voice sounded far more serious. "We've completed our final verification. There is a strong possibility that this is a document fraud scheme intended to seize property." Rachel closed her eyes. The phrase echoed through her mind again and again. Seize property. This was no longer a misunderstanding. This was no longer a family disagreement. This was an act that could carry legal consequences. At that very moment, the family group chat lit up once more. Olivia sent another message. "There's been a minor paperwork delay, but everything is still fine. Don't worry, we'll own the ranch very soon." Rachel stared at the message for a long time. She remembered all the years of being underestimated. Every time she had been pushed aside, every success that had been dismissed, and now she finally understood. They had never wanted to see her succeed. Because if Rachel succeeded, the story they had been telling themselves for years would fall apart. A few minutes later, Olivia's phone suddenly rang. It was a call from the bank's legal department, and from that moment forward, the celebration Olivia had been waiting for officially became a nightmare. While the rest of the family still believed they were about to acquire the deal of a lifetime, investigators had already begun collecting evidence. Meanwhile, Rachel sat quietly in her office. Beside her was a letter from the family attorney. A letter revealing the greatest secret her grandfather had left behind. A secret worth far more than the ranch itself. And if Olivia ever discovered the truth, the situation might become far more dangerous than anyone imagined. There are people who stop when they are exposed, but there are also people who continue lying even when the truth is standing right in front of them. Olivia belonged to the second group. That afternoon, less than an hour after the auction was suspended, the family group chat exploded again. Olivia was the first to speak. Rachel is trying to sabotage everything. Immediately, her mother supported her. That girl always exaggerates everything. Her father joined in as well. If Rachel had just answered the phone, everything would have been solved. Rachel read those messages without any surprise. In their eyes, the one causing trouble was never Olivia, it was always her. Even when the situation had already begun to be investigated, even when the fake documents had already been discovered, even when the bank had officially confirmed that no auction ever existed, the same old story continued. Rachel was the one at fault. But this time, that story was no longer strong enough to hide the truth. 3 days later, the County Financial Investigation Department officially took over the case. Technical experts began tracing the origin of all documents Olivia had used. Everything moved faster than she expected. Files created on a personal computer, edited documents, downloaded templates, digital traces that were thought to be deleted, all of it began to surface one by one. A week later, Nathan Brooks called Rachel. His voice was heavier than usual. "We have received the preliminary investigation results." Rachel said nothing. He continued. "Olivia's search history has been legally retrieved." Rachel looked out toward the distant fields. She had already suspected something like this, but when she heard what was being read out loud, even she felt a chill run through her body. How to buy foreclosed property from a family member. Penalties for real estate fraud. Can auction documents be traced? Fastest way to transfer land ownership. Rachel closed her eyes. There was no longer any room for misunderstanding. Olivia knew exactly what she was doing. She researched it, she prepared for it, and she still chose to go forward. Meanwhile, another detail suddenly emerged. Investigators discovered 2 old complaints related to Olivia. Both came from elderly homeowners she had previously dealt with in real estate transactions. None of the cases led to prosecution, but the reports described the same pattern of behavior, hiding information, applying pressure, and attempting to profit from people who did not fully understand the situation. Rachel sat in silence. For the first time, she wondered whether this had always been who Olivia truly was, or whether the family had helped shape her into it. At her parents' house, the atmosphere began to shift. At first, they still believed everything would be fine, but when they received subpoenas for testimony, anxiety slowly set in. Her mother began losing sleep for several nights in a row. Her father kept calling lawyers. Olivia, however, still tried to maintain her calm, at least on the surface. Inside, everything was already collapsing. The first person to truly notice it was Ethan, a cousin who had once been very close to Olivia. One evening, Ethan called Rachel. His voice was quieter than usual. "I think I understand now," he said. Rachel stayed silent. Ethan continued. "I looked back at everything over the years. Every time you succeeded, they tried to minimize it. Every time Olivia made a mistake, they found excuses to protect her. Maybe the family has been wrong for a very long time." Rachel did not know how to respond, because this was something she had understood years ago. But this was the first time someone else could see it too. 1 month later, the official case file was submitted to the prosecutor's office. The evidence was overwhelming. Fake documents, financial transactions, messages in the family group chat, search history, the entire picture was now complete. Olivia no longer had any choice. Her lawyer began negotiating a plea agreement. On the day it was announced, the entire family nearly collapsed. The woman once seen as the pride of the family now faced a criminal record. Her real estate company immediately suspended her. Clients began canceling contracts one after another. People who once praised her started avoiding her. Everything happened so fast that no one had time to process it. But for Rachel, the most painful part was not Olivia's downfall. It was what she realized after everything. If the bank had not discovered the irregularities that day, if the fake auction had gone through, not a single person in the family would have stood by her. Not one. And just as the plea negotiations were about to conclude, the estate lawyer managing Rachel's grandfather's assets appeared. He carried a thick folder. Inside was a secret that had been kept hidden for nearly 20 years, a secret that made the true value of the ranch not only greater than anyone imagined, but so significant that it could change the entire life of whoever owned it, including Olivia. There is a strange truth in life. Many people think the most valuable things are always right in front of them, but sometimes the real value is hidden where no one is looking. 3 weeks after Olivia accepted the civil settlement and the case was officially closed, Rachel arrived at the family law office. Outside the window, autumn was painting the distant hills in shades of gold. Inside that quiet room, attorney William Harper placed an old folder in front of her. It was the final file left behind by Rachel's grandfather, a document that had never been made public for nearly 20 years. Rachel opened the folder. The first page was her grandfather's signature. The second page was a map of the land. By the third page, she instinctively straightened in her seat. William looked at her and gave a slight nod. Exactly as she had suspected, this was the secret. Many years ago, when everyone only saw fields and cattle, Rachel's grandfather had quietly purchased the underground water extraction rights beneath the entire region, not only under the ranch, but extending across multiple surrounding properties. At that time, no one cared. Water was abundant. No one believed it would ever hold significant value. But time changed everything. The population grew. Development projects spread across the region. Water became a strategic resource. The extraction rights her grandfather had purchased for a very small price were now worth an enormous fortune. William gently slid another document toward her. It was the latest valuation report. Rachel looked at the number printed on the page. In that moment, even she could not believe her eyes. The value of the water rights was now many times greater than the entire ranch itself. The asset Olivia had tried so desperately to take was only the surface of something much deeper. Rachel sat in silence, not because she was happy, but because she suddenly understood something. If Olivia had succeeded, if the fake auction had not been stopped, she would not only have taken the ranch, she would have unknowingly gained control over one of the most valuable resources in the entire region. A long silence filled the room. William finally spoke. "Your grandfather knew this would happen." Rachel slowly raised her head. "He left a separate instruction." William handed her a faded envelope, worn with age. Inside was only a short message. "The right person to hold this asset is not the one who wants it the most, but the one who has proven they deserve it." Rachel gave a faint smile, the first time in many months. 1 year later, the Dawson Ranch had completely transformed. Rachel established a water resource research center dedicated to sustainable agriculture. Young students began arriving for internships. Experts from multiple states came to collaborate. Her name slowly gained recognition across the field. But what was most surprising was that Rachel shared almost none of her success with her family. Not out of anger, but because she no longer needed their approval. Meanwhile, Olivia's life moved in a completely different direction. She lost her professional license, lost most of her clients, and lost the reputation she had spent years building. The person once considered the pride of the family had almost disappeared from every conversation. Rachel's parents also began to change, not immediately, but gradually. When there was no longer Olivia to defend, and no longer Rachel to dismiss, they were forced to face themselves. One winter evening, Rachel received an email from her father. The message was extremely short. "I was wrong." Only 4 words. No explanation, no justification, no blame. Rachel read it several times, then closed her laptop. She did not reply, not because she could not forgive, but because some wounds do not need more words to heal. 2 years later, Rachel stood on her porch as the sun rose on the horizon. The first rays of light covered the wide open fields, the same place that had once been the source of greed, and also the place that helped her rediscover herself. On her desk, the computer still contained a file named "The Missing Applause." The list had once been long, filled with sadness, forgotten moments, and invisible pain. Rachel opened the file, read the final line, and then deleted everything. Not because those events had never happened, but because they no longer had any control over her life. Some people spend their entire lives trying to prove their worth to others. Rachel finally understood that true value does not come from recognition. It comes from continuing to build your life even when no one is clapping. In front of her, the sun continued to rise higher. A gentle wind moved across the golden fields. And for the first time in many years, Rachel felt completely free.